Hello everyone, I'm Keegan83 and welcome to part 2 of the 2013 E3 pre-show here on the Super Gaming Network. Next up is Microsoft here on the Big 3, who recently, a couple of weeks ago, revealed the successor to the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, which is slated to be released later on this year. This newfangled system has been said to combine the features of an Xbox gaming console with Kinect motion technology and many multimedia functions that Microsoft has been pushing to be an all-in-one system for all your needs in the living room. I will admit, I actually do like a lot of the ideas Microsoft has put forth in concept. I like the idea of voice command to a degree. I like the scrolling of the screens that they had at the press conference with the new system, running multiple programs, and I also like the idea of improved Kinect controls by being able to detect your movements better, which they went into detail in. The thing's even got a DVR feature for crying out loud, and it also has, get this, a Blu-ray drive. Gee, I guess Microsoft wanted a piece of that Blu-ray berry pie. But after letting the press conference sit for a bit and watching some critiques of the system, I'm not fully on board with this new Xbox system. And I say that in two forms of perspective. One is in the field of entertainment, and the other is just being a gamer in general. If you're someone who's into the latest tech, for example, and looking to create a good experience in your entertainment center and living room, it sounds good. But this is an E3 convention, after all, that showcases games, and is geared towards games. If you were looking for something on the Xbox One as a gamer, there's a chance you may have actually been disappointed, because at the Microsoft press conference back on May 21st, they were pretty minimal on talking about games. They did announce a few good things to help curb your appetite, like 15 new exclusive games to the system, which 8 of them are actually brand new IPs. They've also mentioned a new game from one of Rare's cherished franchises, and thank goodness right now, because Rare clearly needs to get back into the gaming scene. They haven't had that many hits ever since the N64 era. They had an okay run on the GameCube, but ever since they went to Microsoft, they've been pretty quiet, let's be honest. They've also announced a new Forza game, another Call of Duty, which includes DLC that'll arrive in advance of the other systems, and are supporting Xbox Live once again, which has been a pretty good thing the last few years. But that's about it. We did not get to see any new gameplay footage of these upcoming Xbox games, which I can understand from the thought that this is a news conference detailing the new system. So that means games were playing the sidekick role for that news conference. Plus later we found out that indie developers, they cannot self-publish on the new Xbox, which is a bit disturbing because indie games have been doing really well for the last few years now. Microsoft also went on about their new partnership with the NFL, which I heard fetched a pretty big penny on the market, and showed off an assortment of EA games, but still no gameplay. The CGI cutscenes looked good. I will give it that, I won't deny that. The graphics looked good. But yet again, I push the fact that this is a game convention, and that wasn't gameplay. So in conclusion, for Microsoft, hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel for this. Now that the new Xbox One has been detailed and talked about, maybe Microsoft will finally let some games from themselves be shown off in a better way. Since this is a convention geared towards games, maybe Microsoft will actually go forth and actually talk more about games. Because, to be honest everyone, the last 2 E3s from Microsoft, they've been pretty bad. And this is due to Microsoft getting caught up with certain things relating to gimmicks, and not much variety at all for the Xbox 360 in its later years of first-party support. Not to mention, there's even been a bit of an ignorant side when it comes to games these days. So for Xbox fans, I hope you guys finally get some great attention on games for both the Xbox 360 and the new Xbox One, because that is pretty much what the Xbox is in the end. It's a gaming platform. But with how things have been progressing lately with the Xbox systems, there could be a concern in the water. But once again, good luck Xbox fans. I hope you guys get some good games at this year's E3 as well. Sony. Now we move on to Sony, the third member of the big three. Their last two E3s have been rather good actually, with good support for their PlayStation 3 system. And like Microsoft, they're releasing a new console in the near future dubbed the PlayStation 4, which was announced earlier this year back in February. The powerful new console, from what I've heard, has an easier development system, which is easier to make games for from developers, and a faster Blu-ray drive. And it's being positioned that Sony wants to make the PS4 system for a broader audience with the quote of by gamers for gamers, so to speak. Coming from my own personal perspective, I also really like the graphical power it's touting out right now, at least based off the early artwork and some of the early trailers, because I saw one of the early trailers for the next Infamous game, and that looked really good. Plus, with the new Unreal 4 engine coming soon, with that being on the way, we can only imagine what games are going to look like for games like, say, Uncharted, or even Batman will look on the new PlayStation 4 and the upcoming Xbox One. In terms of games, we know that Infamous Second Son is coming down the road. We know that some third-party support has already been announced, and plus developers and publishers are already starting to develop for the two new systems. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what Sony has in store for this year. And keep in mind, compared to Microsoft, they have a pretty good variety when it comes to their first-party games, so they might even have an edge right there, unless Microsoft brings up something to combat Sony's first-party lineup. Because when you look at the variety part of both Microsoft and Sony, Sony actually has more variety compared to Microsoft, which was very first-person shooter heavy. Wasn't bad, but when you look at variety, Sony could have the edge. I also think that compared to the press conferences, both where Sony and Microsoft positioned the new systems for later revealing, Sony I think has done a better job than Microsoft at this point. But we'll see how it goes when both companies hold their press conferences, and we can discuss the final results of who won over the other. I would also bring up the PS Vita, but at this time, I don't have much to lean on. Since the system launched, it hasn't had very many games to talk about. But hopefully something is on the way. That way people who bought the PlayStation Vita, hopefully they get some good support. There have been some good games like Uncharted Golden Abyss, Assassin's Creed Liberation, and I believe there was another title in there, but I can't think of it right now. So hopefully for Vita holders, they'll get something good too. Now as we come to the conclusion for this part of the pre-show, what's the final thoughts on all three of the console competitors? In a nutshell, this could really change the landscape of who takes the lead in the console generation once again, because there have been many gauntlets thrown down now. Nintendo is in a state where they really cannot screw up this time anymore. They know they are in trouble, and they know that their fan base is a bit on the fence with them right now. They have nowhere to go but up. And hopefully they can bring out the big guns this time, because right now the Wii U needs games, and that's what drives the system to be successful. And that's been present for decades by this point. As far as Microsoft goes, once again, I like the ideas. But will it be good enough to be a good suitor for gamers? It seems like Microsoft is going in a different direction with the Xbox One. And while the idea seems okay in the multimedia aspect, they seem to be losing touch with their audience of gamers, and that's been a concern a bit lately. Especially for the gamers who went over to the original Xbox and, most recently, the Xbox 360 just to play games. And I've never met a person yet who doesn't use their Xbox for something other than just gaming. So once again, that could be a concern in the water. Last but not least is Sony. And at the moment, it looks like Sony might be on the right track with the PlayStation 4. I didn't talk much about games, but they seem to be on the right track with the new PS4 system. It sounds like a good machine to develop for. It has a few more good ideas put in, and compared to the press conferences, Sony may have a better system overall from Microsoft. But for now, as we do approach E3 in the coming months leading up to the release of the new systems, the big question now is, which of the two do you think is better than the other? I've already brought it up before, but games do make a game system. Games help make a game system get the credit it pursues. It reminds me of a quote from former Sega president and Sony vice president executive Bernie Stoller. Bernie said once in an interview, and this was coming off of the old G4 channel, he said in a quote in an interview And here's the quote here: "Software has always driven hardware. If you don't have the software, the hardware will fail." And that's a very true quote when it comes to game systems. And a recent example is, unfortunately, the Nintendo Wii U system, which I've already said needs games. Well, everyone, this concludes our big portion of the E3 pre-show. I hope you guys enjoyed it so far, and I hope you will be looking forward to E3 by this time. And with everything said, I'm Keegan83 of We Fell in a Tree. You guys have a good night. Thanks as always for watching. Catch you on the flip side, everyone. See you next time.